Everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology. I am Janet Hickox, and today we're going to be talking about the human design energy for the upcoming week. We're actually broadcasting live on the Live by Human Design Facebook group, and I believe you are also able to get this if you are on my Living Astrology Facebook page. So let's dig in because I have a lot to share with you and I have very little time because the Seahawks are playing today. And as all of you know, I'm a big fan of the Seahawks. Bring on the 12. That is my deal for Sundays, right? So here we go. This week we have kind of an interesting week. I mean, we have had this theme going on around fear. As the spleen is the one center that's really been consistently being hit. In fact, on the Facebook page here today, you should be able to see the actual chart for the week. And I didn't have a chance to color it in, but here would be the spleen right over here. See, right here. And you can see there's 2 gates at least sitting on that spleen. And so again, we're dealing with some fears this week. So the sun is at gate 57, the gate of being psychic or the gate of using your intuition. The earth is at gate 51, not on the spleen, that is on the will center or the ego center, and is called the gate of shock in human design. In the gene keys, it's a little bit more about what agitates us, what gets us moving, and what gives us the impulse to stretch and grow and to move forward toward spiritual enlightenment or awakening. Venus and Mars, we're going to talk a bit about them because they're sitting at a gate that kind of concerns me this week in light of some of the rhetoric that I'm hearing going on between Iran and our president and our president in North Korea. So, and some comments he made. So this gate concerns me a little bit because this is the gate of conflict. And the high side of this gate brings us to the potential for diplomacy, and possibly even if we can stretch and grow, maybe we can even reach peace. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. This week, Jupiter's still at gate 50. I dealt with that last week, so I don't think I'll be talking much about that one. But Saturn is a subject that is fascinating me right now because it is sitting in regular astrology near the galactic center. We'll be crossing the galactic center very shortly. And when I checked the gate that it was in for human design, I was delighted because it's really in the gate of light, or in the gate in human design is really about seeking spiritual enlightenment, sharing ideas, etc. In the gene keys, the highest expression of this gate or of this gene key, if you want to call it that, is light. And idealism is the gift, obscurity being the shadow. So we will want to talk about how that might be playing out in our own lives. If you have comments, you can run those through. I might be able to see them. I don't see any comments at the moment, but let me just say hi to everybody. Hi. If you have questions or comments, write them here. There we go. All right. So if you have something that you want to ask or something that you want to say, go ahead. I may not see it right away, but I will scroll back before we close today and see if there's anything I want to talk to you about or you want to talk to me about. Holy cow, let's talk correctly here. So the sun this week at gate 57 is a gate of intuition. It is sitting on the spleen center, heading up toward the throat. And in some cases, it makes a right turn and hits the sacral center. And up a little higher, it also makes a right turn and can connect to the identity center. But right now it's hanging because there's nothing else transiting that's closing the gap. So when we have gate 57 in our transit information, we might be very inclined to listen to what our inner voice is saying. This gives us the real potential to overcome a fear this week. And the fear with gate 57 is the fear of the future, where we start getting our minds too far ahead and we begin to worry about things that haven't even happened yet or things that haven't come to pass. So if we can remember that our intuition is speaking to us in the moment and is not something to be feared about the future, then we can keep ourselves in alignment with what it's meant for, which is a voice from within. Now, many of you out there who might be listening are maybe not quite sure about what type you are or about what your strategy is. So let me say here, intuition is one of those voices that comes from within, and it's very deep, and it wants us to take action in the moment. But some of you are generators or manifesting generators or projectors that are actually emotionally defined. And if you're emotionally defined, you do not make decisions in the moment. So being careful here not to just jump because you believe your intuition spoke, right? We're looking for clarity. And with the emotional center, clarity comes with time, not with the gut impulse that happens in the intuition center. So this is a week where we're sort of having to, we can't see me, but here we're trying to keep things sort of balanced between our intuition and that gut instinct that says act. And for those of us who are emotionally defined, waiting for calmness and coolness before we actually, clarity, before we actually take action. And you're going to see this is going to become really important because gate 6, Venus and Mars, sitting at the emotional center, can drive us to take action based in conflict without clarity. So, all right, so the sun, the highest expression of the sun in the gate this week is clarity. Clarity when it comes to intuition, which is interesting. So here is an opportunity for some energy to kind of be at loggerheads because we're trying to get clarity from the, an action in the moment or a thought in the moment or an intuition in the moment. But if you're emotionally defined, you have to wait. You can't take action on that until you have clarity over time. Give yourself at least 24 hours before you make a decision. The Earth this week is at a gate that sometimes is concerning to me as well. The ego center or will center is the place where gate 51 is for this week. The Earth, meaning what grounds us, what keeps our feet on the ground. And this is the gate of agitation or the gate of shock, as many of you have heard me call it before. Shock in human design and even in the gene keys has its purpose because it electrifies us and causes us to take notice that perhaps we need to move in a different direction. And ultimately, this gate is about awakening. It is about getting back in alignment with universal love or with universal concepts like our higher spiritual selves. The ego center or the will center's purpose is to bring things from or into form or bring things into manifestation. Most likely you have this center open in your human design because only about 1/8 of the population has it defined. So shock on an open will center can cause you to sometimes go, whoa, I need to make some big changes, or I need to work harder, or I need to spend more time, or I need to spend more money, allocate more resources to doing the same things I've always been doing. So here I want you to just bring yourself to peace. Don't take any action. The shock and the agitation is really about waiting for clarity or taking action based on your type and strategy, which makes me think I forgot I was going to do a class for you guys on type and strategy. So maybe I can get to that this week for you. So when I say follow your type, follow your strategy, follow your authority, you'll have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Now, gate 32 and gate 57 are also playing host to Mercury this week. Mercury is the planet of communication, and at gate 57, he is sitting with the sun, by the way. He acts as the ferryman, if you will, the ferryman of the information that's coming to us intuitively and in bringing it from the unconscious into the conscious mind. And from there, then if we just breathe before we take any action, we can determine what's the best course of action or what the next step is for us. Because he's helping us. Mercury is helping us at this point to access intuition in a positive way and to be able to hear our higher voice, even through the muck of our unconscious mind, which is being triggered by the fear gates or the fears that sometimes come up through the gates on the spleen. And if you're not understanding me, I don't see any questions being typed up here for me. So hopefully you all understand. If you are watching this later, which you may be because I'm live right now, but this will archive and immediately be available for reviewing, you can still type in a question because I'll still get that notification that someone has a question and I will answer it for you. So later in the week, Mercury moves into gate 32, also a gate on the spleen, which, as you know, means an opportunity for us to overcome fear. Now, the fear at gate 32 is the fear of failure. And Jason, I'm going to say this just for you. Sometimes I think this is also the fear of success. Like, what happens if I succeed and all my dreams come true? What then, right? What else do I do then? And in this case, the gate 32 with Mercury is completing the channel of transformation because Pluto has been sitting at gate 54 long term, and they're right across from each other. Let me get my little graphic here and show you again. That's this gate right here. Gate 32 is, where's my pen? Up here on the spleen, and it's connecting to gate 54 where Pluto is on the root center. So that is called the channel of transformation, and it has some very distinctive themes. The themes in this particular channel are about integrity, recognition, productivity, especially as it relates to the business that we're in or the work that we do in business. This is also a channel that can bring up workaholic tendencies, right? If I just work one more hour, if I just do 5 more tasks, I can get this done. Only what we find in the channel of transformation is that magic happens when we wait, right? When we follow the type and strategy. Maybe it is about responding to what is showing up in your outer world. But we also have to remember, because the root center is involved, it is an energy, a motor. And the motor here has the energy of pulsing on and pulsing off. And now if it pulses off and there's no longer any, juice, but you keep pushing, then what you're doing is burning yourself out. Or the potential is that you're burning yourself out. And the more tired you become, the more fearful you become. So the magic happens here when you do the work that is in response, or is, if you're a projector, it is that an invitation that you have, because this channel is very far away from the throat, which is the center for manifesting things. So share your dreams, share your business ideas, but wait for the right moments to take action upon those ideas and on those dreams. Okay, so Venus and Mars, I was talking about them a little bit earlier in that they're at a gate that's a little bit of concern because it's on the emotional center. And here in this particular center, the emotional center, many of us are kind of preconditioned, if you will, to knee-jerk, to react to emotional stimulus. You only have to look at the Twitter feed of our lovely president to see emotional energy gone wrong, right? Somebody insults him or something happens and he just decides he's going to go on this rampage with words. And it's all based in an emotional knee-jerk reaction sort of mode. And we all do it. It's not like he's a bad man just because he does that. It's not that. It's we get to see it, right? Plain and simple in our faces. Because sometimes it's hidden from ourselves how we are using the center of emotional energy to create conflict in our lives. And conflict happens because it's sitting at the gate that says this is emotional energy and it must be waited on for a reaction. In other words, remember, emotional energy flows in waves where it has a high energy and then it has its lower frequency wave. And we want to be able to not react, but respond to emotional energy when we're in sort of a neutral space. And since we don't know in the moment where we are, in terms of that emotional wave, it really behooves us to stop and breathe. Don't react to conflict that we feel going on. I've also heard this gate called the gate of love and war. So it is a gate that wants intimacy, that is reaching out for connection, emotional connection. But again, even emotional connection, intimacy is something that we wait for, that we get clarity with before we share that way. The highest expression of this energy, like I said, is peace. So let's hold a vision of peace, because I know there's some really tricky energies lining up this week. Let's hold a vision of peace. Maybe we'll land at the gift of diplomacy rather than getting into the more negative expression or shadow expression, which is conflict. So watching that energy, the most disruptive part of this energy, I think, comes later in the week, because Mars actually is moving to that gate midweek. And Mars is an energy that's already sort of on the assertive, aggressive, conflict-oriented side. It sometimes likes to take action before thinking, or, not, or let's say taking action without cooler heads. And so that's a little more concerning to me, not the early part of the week, but as we get to the later part of the week. So let's just set that energy for peace now. And let's not get into shock and conflict, two of those big energies that are holding us this week. Let's see, a couple last things before we go today. Neptune is at the gate of doubt, and the North Node is sitting at the gate of answers. Together, they are forming the channel of logic. Now, many of you have an open head out there, and so suddenly today, and maybe even an open ajna, the top two centers right here in the top center is the head. The second one down is the ajna, and you can see that Neptune and the North Node are creating that connection. And that means that if you don't normally have a defined head and ajna, suddenly this week you do, and it's through the channel of logic that begins in the gate of doubt and suspicion and ends in the gate 4, which is, oh, I have the answers. Or at least the pressure to find answers, to relieve yourself of the questions that are dogging you. For example, how do I do something? When is something going to happen? Where should I be so that things can happen? Can I prove that this is exactly what I need to do in order to move forward with my life? And these kind of questions pressure us, right? Especially if normally you have an open head and ajna, which about 50% of you do. So a reminder to not identify with what's going on up here in your head. I tell people this all the time, the 3 gates in the head, 63, 61, and 64, are called the gates of madness. And in that they can provoke us into constantly thinking our way into and out of answers for life's biggest questions, or for us answering the need to figure things out. And I tell people all the time, your job is to claim the what you want and let the universe deliver you the how. The next steps come from the universe. So this gate or this channel reminds us a little bit to have faith that the answers will come. But the pressure for us is to take action on those questions that may not even be our own, right? It may be that we have this idea or feeling that our parents or our spouses or our clients want us to answer certain questions, like how am I supposed to do this, or how is that supposed to happen? It's not our jobs to answer the how, right? Our job is to answer the what do we want, and then let the universe deliver the steps for us. All right. Now, this last week on my radio show, Living Astrology, which, by the way, is on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. East Coast time, we entered into a very deep conversation, Jason and I, on Saturn, as Saturn is moving through the last few degrees of Sagittarius, getting ready for its move into Capricorn on December 19th. And like a lightning bolt, like the gate of shock can bring. I had this memory that, of course, Saturn is going to be sitting at the galactic center. And I love the galactic center, right? It is the source of a whole lot of wonderful energy for evolution as it comes from the central sun, the center of our solar system, and bathes the entire solar system in high energy particles, gamma rays, X-rays, cosmic rays, that in and of themselves have an effect to mutate life, to mutate or change or evolve life here on Earth, but also throughout the whole of the solar system. So it really was interesting to see that Saturn will be sitting this week. It begins its last few degrees, or the last gate before it changes signs. That will be gate 11, which is on the Ajna. It's called the gate of ideas, but it is in the gene keys where I find the most wonderful aspect of this gate, and that is the idea of light and bringing more and more light into the planet. You know, it has seemed rather dark on the planet. I can't even tell you how many times I've been almost drawn into, have been drawn into the dramas, the traumas that are going on the planet here. Just in the US alone, we have lots of trauma dramas every day, it seems like. But here, this is hope for allowing more and more light in, and the more light we bring into the planet, the more we evolve, and we evolve in a way that brings more light even into our DNA. So the evolution that's happening is for us to bring more and more light, more and more awakening, more and more idealism, living from the ideal. The real world sometimes feels a little dense, a little heavy, and Saturn does want realism, but what we can be doing is choosing what course of action we want to take. How can I bring in more and more light into my life? What can I be doing to bring more and more light into my life, which then affects everybody that I come in contact with, which then, you know, spreads out. It's like, and so on, right? Light keeps spreading. So the DNA connection is strong with Saturn in this last gate of Sagittarius, and the galactic center, of course, allowing highly charged particles into the planet to help us with that evolutionary leap that we must take, and more of our living from ideals and values that represent those ideals, and not succumbing to the fear, to the cynicism, to the division, to the conflict right now that we see on the planet. I think those are energies that are symptoms of our eventual leap into the light. So I think that's a good place to leave us for this week. And tune in later this week here, where I will try to get a workshop going on type and strategy, so everybody can kind of connect with me when I say follow your type and your strategy. And don't forget to join me on Living Astrology at 4 p.m. on Thursday, and Titillating Tarot, Jason, on Wednesday at 4 p.m. I think he's moving into the moon this week, and I haven't yet decided what I'll be moving into this week, but I will make sure everybody knows. Do me a favor, please. If you go to Blog Talk Radio, you can click on the follow button, and that way you'll get updates on our radio show. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you all? Oh, remember, every weekday morning between 7:30 and 8 a.m. on the West Coast, and that makes it about 10:30 to 11 a.m. on the East Coast, Jason and I go live on the Living Astrology Facebook page to talk about the daily energies. So you know this is going to be an interesting week, so you may want to join us for that. It also archives on the Living Astrology page, so if you miss us live, you can catch us later. All right, everybody, go Hawks, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now. Oh, wait, let me check for questions. Hi. Don't see any questions, so if you want to have a question answered, feel free to type them in below the video on the Facebook group Live by Human Design, and I'll see those and answer them for you later. Okay, bye, everybody.